Hi everyone, welcome back to my studio here in Pennsylvania. I am going to continue some of our studies of the beginning rows, okay? So what you want to do is, if you're following along with some of these lessons, some of the beginning rows concepts that I'm showing you, go over to our channel and you click a playlist there that is Acrylic Beginning Roses. There's also a very important playlist for those of you painting along with me here, and it's called How to Correct Roses. And there I break apart the rows and show you some of the problems with different videos that people have had, my students have had over the years, and you may have some of those same problems, and how to easily correct those, okay? So navigate through some of this stuff by the playlist, but you want to make sure that you subscribe to the channel and also like the video. We hope you like the video. Okay, all right, let's get into a beginning rows with the acrylics again. Okay, so this is my standard board. This is an MDF, or you could use the hard board. The links for this are over on jansenartstudio.com. You click the free videos, and then you go over to the page called Supplies, and you can see that. But you can also see all the playlists over there as well. It's a lot easier to navigate. Everything that I use is listed over there, okay? But this is a hardboard. I gave it just a coat. I make it a medium type of value here, which is just some black and some white and some yellow here. And I think I added a touch of burnt sienna to this one as well. Works really well. All right, so for my colors, standard palette that I've used here before, except for I replaced the phthalo blue with sapphire today. But I have Hansa yellow, Dargy light yellow, yellow oxide, the burnt sienna, naphtha red light, pine green. This is a sapphire, like I said, not the phthalo. This is red violet, quinacridone violet, and my white. Now this is I usually have phthalo, but this is a normal standard painting palette for practicing your roses. So you'll use these colors just about everywhere in quite a few of my videos, probably about 80% of my videos. Teaching you roses, you'll use those particular colors, okay? Now, I have a cap of extender out. I'm going to show you, introduce some of you to this today and give you some new ideas for it. This is old and dirty. I use it. Never throw it out. Even if it gets dirty, never throw it out. I have one student that threw it out, and I was just like, no, you don't need to. You can paint with dirty extender all the time. It gets dirty if you keep dipping your brush into it. But this is what it is. Extender medium. It slows down the drying time, but see, it's just as thin as water, and so you tend to thin out the acrylics. And then this is the new medium that is out by Deravan, which I like. Deravan manufactures our paint for us. They're a wonderful company down in Sydney, Australia. And this is their open medium that you add to acrylics, and it makes them react more like an oil, so you can do holoprema and everything else with it. And it's a beautiful, non-toxic, wonderful medium, but it's thicker and stickier than the extender. So I use them for different types of techniques within the painting, which I will slowly show you, okay? Over time, I'm going to show you all different kinds of things we do with them. You know, how to paint ocean waves with it, and fun things. There's just a lot of really fun things that we're going to do together, okay? All right, so I have my fusion brushes. These are the fusion brushes that I use. I'm going to use a 3/4 and maybe an 8 or a 10 here today. My 10 is my favorite. Excuse me. My 10 is my favorite painting brush, but a 3/4, and I do, many times you'll see me put down some soft color back behind here, especially if I want to work the rose into something with an holoprema or a wet into wet situation. So we'll do a little bit of that. But also on those rose correction videos, I show you a rose. I show you how a rose is put together. And you have the stem and then the calyx out here and the little sepals that come down. But this is the bowl of the rose. Basically, whenever you look at a rose, and it all depends on how you tilt that rose, how much of the bowl you see, the back petals or the front petals. But it's basically a round circle, and that's why I start my roses out with round circles and round circles and round circles. So I do the center, I do the bowl, and then I do the outside petals. That's how I visualize that. And then as we get more advanced, we're going to tackle roses like this. I'll show you how to paint those. They're a lot of fun. Lots of stuff to show you. Anyway, so I'm going to work this a little wet into wet, and I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to show you basically some fun things to do. Let's take a little sapphire. I love the sapphire, and I'm going to dirty it up with some, burnt sienna is almost a complement to it. And so it grays it down. It makes a beautiful kind of a gray color here. And I want to keep it just slightly to the burnt sienna side. Now I'm going to add some extender to this. Now the reason why I'm adding extender is I want color that I put down on the surface to be thinner than color that I paint the roses with. So I'll be painting the roses with the open medium, but I'll be thinning down the color here on the surface that I put down with some of this. Now you can leave streaks in it. You can do all kinds of real fun things. I like to sometimes put in a little angle. This is more of a contemporary look, and that's where I classify myself as, for many years, for over 25 years in my painting career, I was a folk artist and looking at old decorative styles and copying the old masters and stuff. And now I consider myself an impressionist. There's photo representational painters and stuff, and I leaned a little bit more towards impressionism. I like the loss. I like brushwork, but you can do this on a smooth background. You can do it on anything you want. I do almost equally paint smooth backgrounds, but for myself, I like to show you a little bit of that impressionist. But now this is going to stay wet for a while, enough to give my time to work my rose in. Now sometimes if you get this a little bit too heavy, if you're going to do a rose, okay, and you want to back out the rose just a little bit, don't take it all off because we like to have that in there for a tone. But right where I'm going to do my rose, I back this out. Now this is something Rembrandt did all the time, and putting on glazes and backing out and working his flowers. And so this is where when we use mediums that allow us to extend the drying times of our paints, we can do some of these fun things too. Now let's come in. I'm going to do a heritage rose that kind of goes towards a peachy kind of rose. Not quite. This is one I did for one of my books. It was a heritage rose, and I've shown how to put it together. And I go from a pink color here. The heritage rose is one I love. I grow them out there in my gardens. And they go from a real pinky color to white because the sun fades out as the petals get older. The outside petals get white because the color actually of the rose is very fugitive to the sun. So older petals lose their color real quick. But I want to go more towards a four-bunda rose called an apricot nectar. I like that, but maybe a little bit of a reddish color on the inside. And let's just do that. Let's take a bit of our quinacridone and our red. I love this color. Now, I'm going to start to keep this a little wet this time with some open medium. I'm going to brush mix this in, and I just brush mix in open medium. You can see it's a stringy, it's a thicker medium. You don't use any more than like a 1-to-1, but it's a beautiful medium, and it'll make the acrylics feel very similar to oils. And I'm going to start right here. So I divide mine up. This is my center circle, okay, of the rose. So when you're looking at a rose, depending on how you turn it, you're going to have a center circle right in here with your petals. So that's one circle. Then the bowl will be another circle. So what I do is I'm going to come here. Now you can take you could take the end of your brush and just kind of draw what your bowl circles, where your bowl is going to be right here like this. It's not going to hurt anything right there, so you can see it. And what I do is I drop down right towards that center, and I do a small, and then I slowly, as I come out, make the strokes a little bigger. And why? That is because as you come out of that center, here's the youngest petals, they're the smallest. As you come out, they get bigger and bigger as they get more mature, okay? So we'll put that color in there, nice deep red. Let's put right down here by the bowl, let's put some of that down in as well, because in towards the deep part of the bowl also represents in a rose, and we're not painting this rose, but I'll show you. You also see that reddish color right in there. So in a beautiful rose, before they lose their color to the outside, they have a lot of color that goes in through the throat and down to the bottom of that bowl and that shadow of that bowl. So that's usually where I put a lot of color. I love color down in there. And sometimes, like with this one, we're going to go to a wonderful peach color here. So sometimes I'll take a color, just like a Darulite here, mix that in, because you'll get spots of that brighter yellow and stuff. And even though I'm going to go more peach, I like to have a little bit of that yellow poking through some places of the rose. And it just gives beautiful color. And there's so many lovely varieties of roses. Now, you can use your hands like this with the Heritage acrylics that I use when I use these. These are completely non-toxic, so you can use your hands. There's nothing in there that's going to give you any kinds of problems, okay? So you can use hands. But in other videos, I show you how to use your brush and other techniques. For those of you that are just watching me for the very first time, I'm a technique painter, and that's what I like to teach you guys. I like to teach you all different kinds of techniques. You put them up here, then you can start using different combinations and come up with your particular style. That's what we call art, and that's the beautiful thing about it. I want everyone to be able to paint their own way, and beautiful flowers or ships or westerns or landscapes. And I just show you I like to make paint. I started out as a paint chemist. I like to make paint. I like to figure out techniques and how to do things and show you, okay? And that's where I really like. Now, okay, so I have these beautiful peach colors. Peaches are basically orange. And on this palette, a beautiful peach color comes from yellow oxide and quinacridone, almost about 1-to-1, slightly to the yellow oxide side over here. But when you're painting, you always want to vary. So sometimes more quinacridone, sometimes more yellow oxide. And then you get lovely light color. See that lovely light peach color kind of there? It's really pretty. You could also use, if you want more punch to it, you could use the Darulite yellow and a little bit of the quinacridone. It makes it a little bit brighter. See how it's a little brighter than this? So it all depends on what you want to do, or use any combination. But let's take some of this. Let's just add some open medium to this. I'm going to lighten it up a bit. Let's just drop in, just for fun, let's drop in just a bit of and I don't want to overmix it too much, so I want to model this on my brush. So here's my center circle, here's the bottom of my bowl. Out here, what you barely see is my reaching petals here. So one of the first things I'm going to do, and whenever I strike a color, whenever I make a color, I try to make it you don't see a whole lot of white right here with it. I try to make it so that it is within 2 values of the background. So if my background here is a 6 or a 7, I go no lighter than, say, an 8 or a 9. And I'm going to strike that across the front of the bowl just like that. What that represents is some of the bowl petals that come right here that reach up and arch up. Now you can also go this way, which opens the rose up. This closes that little bowl, and you usually see 1 or 2 little petals like that right up towards the top. Now, I'm just going to pinch wipe my brush. Let me show you this with the brush first. If I want to soften that down, I just take off some of that color. I'm going to reach back up here to some of that, maybe that yellow. I can even put a little Darulite in here, a little bit of the darker kind of peach color. And I'm just going to pull right along the edge, right down like that. 1 or 2 strokes here to soften that out. And I like the movement. See this that's right in there? I like that movement to it. And so I tend to leave that. If you touch that and touch that and touch that, it's going to blend out and it's going to soften out. So, that's up to you. That's all different kinds of looks. That's up to you. I'm going to take a little bit of this softer stuff, not quite as light. If I go down to this side, I want it to cool down and darken down just a bit. And I'm going to kind of just put on this edge of the rose here, kind of following right along the edge of the bowl. And just a few strokes to give that roundness to that bowl. Do you see that? But it's not as light as what I have here. So go down, a couple of values, okay? And over on on my website is the value scales that you can print out. And you'll see me use them a lot in a lot of the videos. Now over here, let's go lighter. Let's close off this part of the bowl up here. We'll go lighter. And then we'll just pull down a little bit right here to just kind of make the top part of that bowl. And I don't want to go one big stroke. That's why you see me do several smaller strokes. Now, You can soften that with the brush, or you can push the edge right like this, and that open medium will keep it wet there for a little bit. Now, if it starts to dry at you at all, okay, it could be your acrylics, okay, it could be the mediums not working with your particular brand of acrylics that you're using, and so you might have to adjust things a little bit different. A lot of the times is you're not using enough paint, and that's the big thing, is this, you've got to use enough paint, okay? So now I have that. Now that really identifies the center of the rose here, that I want to take some soft color. We'll add a little bit of an open medium here. I don't want it quite as light, maybe a little bit more to the red side. So I'll slide up here by my reds, just picking up some of that red. Let's just take a look. And so that's kind of a pretty color. It could be a little bit lighter, so I'll just pick up a bit of light here, and we'll just lighten that just a bit more. And remember, I'm going to do a small little half circle here, okay? Just use the little corner of your brush. Let's just put in a few of these things in here for movement. And that's all. I don't really necessarily need to make a whole bunch of petals. I just need to put some nice rounding movement in there. And maybe just a touch lighter here. Let's go just a touch, but not as light as the front here. I never want to go as light as the front there. A little bit more. We'll just put in some of this kind of movement. So you see a few petals. That's the big thing. And as you come out here, your strokes will be a little longer. As you go inside, your strokes will be a little shorter. Now, I'll paint all different kinds of roses. Sometimes I'll close them up. Like sometimes you'll see me in roses, I'll say, oh, I'm going to come in here and close up this petal a little bit more and pull one down, like a little bold stroke petal here. You can do that. You can open them and close them and do all different kinds of things here and shape your rose any way that you want to shape it. It's your rose. But I use this a lot. This is what I call the petal edging. I take a light color down like this, and I pick up just a tiny bit of that light color. And this is what I call the petal edging technique. And I can draw that petal down like that. And so you can see the edge of it, or anything that you want to, reshape your rose or something like that to make it more fun. Okay, let's get right into our peach colors a little bit more. We'll go out a little bit lighter. Now see, as I go out to those reaching petals in this type of rose, I want them to get lighter, right? They have to get lighter out here because they start to lose it. So they start to lose their color. So I'm going to go lighter up here. And value-wise, I'll look at it like maybe a little bit lighter than my background and stuff here. Now I'm going to go out. How far you go out, kind of envision yourself your circle. So I'll come out somewhere right around here. Now right in here is where the calyx of the rose, or where the stem and the calyx will be. And so what I do is I start right out through here, and I do a lot of times what I call the petal stroke, which is 2 or 3 strokes here. I go one just kind of right towards that calyx, one to kind of round it off a bit, and one to kind of turn it around the other way here, like that. And then what I'm going to do is incorporate this into the shadow. Just push this into the shadow right there like that, which kind of incorporates that petal right into the rose right there. Do you see that? Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect. 80% of that petal is going to cover up, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now you can also use your brush, and I'll show you in other videos, setting your brush down and doing a push-pull, using your brush to set in a halftone. There's a lot of different techniques, guys. Okay. Hopefully this will just give you some ideas. And it's going to take practice. It really will. It all looks really easy for me, but, I've painted 125,672 roses. So, I mean, it's really easy for me. I see them in my sleep. It's going to take some time to get that practice going, but you can do it. Everyone can do it, okay? Now, let's go over here. So, right into here, if this was going to be completing my circle right here, my next petal could come in right about in here. And what I do, and this is the important part, is I'm going to start right out through here. I'll start that first stroke, and I'm going to kind of lift off right where it's going into the bowl. Maybe a little bit more here. We'll start that next stroke down, stopping at the bowl, and maybe right in here, stopping at the bowl. So stop at the bowl right there. Then push your bowl and that together. right in there like that, okay? Now, if this is at all dry, you can just take some of your dirty color right in here and push it right in, okay? But that puts a little bit lighter color out there. Let's do a smaller one right out here, and we'll let this kind of go back behind. Stop at the bowl, push it into the bowl so it starts to become part of the bowl. Let's do just a little bit, maybe a bit more red, a bit darker, sometimes a little burnt sienna that I have in my background is pretty, some of your background color, because that makes it softer like the background. And we'll put in just one or two little ones back here that make it look like the back petals of the rose back there, see? Okay? But I got my big adult, these are the oldest petals on the rose. So they're the biggest petals on the rose. So when you look at a rose, see how small that one is there. And look how big that one is there. Okay? So the bigger petals go out here, the smaller petals go inside. And a good rose painter will judge that. Now before I go any further, let me just take a little bit of my burnt sienna and my green here. This will be our stem. You've seen me do these in all the other videos that I do. You've seen me do this 1,000 times, putting in like the stem here, put in a little bit of more color into it, a little pine green, burnt sienna. Sometimes I'll stroke a little bit of this out. Sometimes I like very much the impressionist part of it. It's just, for me, it's just so much fun just to play color. And sometimes it doesn't work and you go, whoops, but that's okay. It's just a little bit of paint. We're using probably 25 cents worth of paint here and a board, okay? And these boards that I use, I get them at my local home store, the big MDF sheets. And for a 4x8 sheet that gives me about 35 boards, it costs me $8. And I use them on my table saw. So you can find inexpensive ways to practice, okay? But let's just push a little bit of this colors and stuff down through here. I like the impressionist part of what we do as artists. I just love that, and because it's really loosened it up. And it's my daughter that's got me to do that more than anything else. She's an amazing impressionist. So I'll put a little bit of that colors right from the rose, pull them right down there. Now let's go back into here. We'll go back to some of our lights. And remember, I'm always touching that open medium. See how creamy and stuff that is? That this flows just like an oil. It's really nice stuff. Now, here I'm going to pull in. I'm going to pick up a little bit more. This is one of the biggest forward petals, but I'm going to go straight in towards that bowl and then go over to the other side over here. Now, see, I let some of this dirty stuff happen from really wet color. And why? Now, this is a good thing. And let me point this out. I'm going to slow down here a second and point this out, okay? Notice how this petal disappeared real quick. And my first stroke sake, but my petal, right when it hit here, disappeared real quick. And over here, my petal stayed really nice. Why did that happen? That is because I made the error just a minute ago. When I put this color on, I put it on with the open medium. I didn't thin it down with the extender. If I had thinned this down with extender, this would be thinner and this petal would show up immediately. Now, I let that kind of stuff happen because I like to take some of those colors in, and this is sometimes what will give me translucency to a petal. So that's how I paint that. I don't worry about that. But if you're a beginner, you'll worry about stuff like that. And what it is, where that mistake that I made came from, but see, it does create a technique, but where it came from is this is real thick. Was put on, I put the colors from the open medium. And that's why I say we start our painting with extender that's thinner so our rose stands up off the top of it. It's a consistency thing, guys. And no matter where you are in your studies or your artistic journey, one of the most important things that we have to do as artists is keep in mind the consistency of our paints that we're using. Now, as a paint chemist, that's something that we control and we test on in the lab all the time, was what we call the rheology of the paint's movement across the surface, whatever substrate we're putting it on, whatever surface we're putting it on, and how it flows, how it shears. And so, we're testing that kind of stuff, and the thickness, but it's consistency, see? Now, I'm going to come over to the other side here. I want to go more towards this red. So I'm going to put a little bit of the red into this, and I'll put another petal right up on top of that. This one will show up a little bit better because there's none of that over here, that thick color. So as I put that on, you'll see it stay just a bit. But I like to blur out this side of the rose, the shadow side, just a bit. So I don't always give it perfect petals over there. I'm going to do that. Now you can come over here, pick up a little bit of the petal edging technique here, and you can put on more of an edge of a petal if you want. Pull that out, pull that in and out there, and get yourself a nice size to the rose there. Now, okay, so let's come back up here. I like this just a touch more to that yellow side, maybe a bit of white. Let's go, I look at the lightness of this, and I want to go a little bit lighter now into my brush. A little bit lighter, slightly different type of petal, a little bit bigger because it's coming out of that center. Pull that down. Now, many times I will use my finger and push that just like that into the bowl. And this does a couple of things. This not only moves, gives the petal nice movement, but it also prepares a little bit of shadow if I need to put another petal in there. But I'll push this up just like that, and I push that petal right into place. You could also do it with your brush. If that's dry, just take a little bit of extra color here. You can always come back with any of these reds and stuff and just push them in, you know, into those petals, and you know, and give yourself more shadows and stuff. Or if I want a little bit of red coming out into that petal, you can do that. Okay, now don't forget to add your little open medium. Let's go over here. Let's pick up a little bit more light, and I'm going to put in another little petal right out over here, right over onto this side here. And notice how I just short stroke it. I don't stroke it all. I don't pull it. Don't pull it, guys, all the way down to here, because then you take light all the way down here and you disrupt your shadow. I like to go right into there. Now, you can pinch wipe your brush, take a little bit of shadow, a little bit of light, just a little bit of color into your brush if you want, and just pull right across and see. If you don't want to use your finger, that softens it as well. Because you're using the open medium, you can blend like that. You can soften out like that, okay? That's up to you. But I do like that. But I do like to leave a few streaks and marks like this. I find those add more interest to the rose. So I always like a little bit of movement. Let's take just the edge. Let me show you. Take just the edge and practice this. This takes practice because you have to learn control. We'll just draw a little petal right back out in here. Just roll over the brush right onto the edge like that. Draw that petal edge. Now we'll flatten it out just a bit, pull it across, and we'll put another petal right in there like that onto that edge. And I can use this petal edging to draw or fix up or correct any kind of petal edges or little things going on. Like sometimes I'll put a little bit of the pink into this right here, and let's just kind of bring this right over here. Bring those together, draw a little bit more of that out there. So you can do all kinds of fun things with it. Okay? And it's all practice, but all of this takes practice. If you're new to painting, especially if you're a beginner, you're not going to paint a rose like this to begin with, because you've got to learn how the paint feels. You've got to learn the shape of the rose. You've got to learn pressure of your brush. You've got to learn paint consistency. You're not all going to learn all of that in one rose. It's not going to happen. I always say 25 to 50 rows. Anytime you change a concept, learn a new things, it's 25 to 50 roses to embed it into here and make it part of it. Does that make sense? Okay? So don't judge yourself that I can't do it. I don't like it when students say, I can't do it. Of course you can do it. We can all do it. It just takes us practice, okay? It just takes practice. You never saw the years and the frustration I had in practicing. And yeah, that's what we do. We practice. Now, right out through here, I'm going to make a slightly lighter, bigger. You can make it more yellow. You can bring more color into your rose, more yellow. Here, let's go up here towards this. I'm going to make it a little lighter so it sits up on top of this one. Now when I put another petal, I can put another petal out here and widen the bowl, or I can put another petal here and pull into the bowl. So these petals pull into the bowl towards that calyx. These petals pull down towards that calyx. See, pull down. At some point right in here, you're going to have a petal that's going to be more at an angle, okay? That's just going to come in more at an angle. But I could first fit one in right in here, a little lighter. Let's just pull it right in here like this. It would be a little smaller than that outside one, so maybe only 2 strokes, so right in there like that. I can fit that one in there, okay? Notice how I stop at the bowl. Now, you can pinch wipe your brush. You know, there's all kinds of, you know, in all the lessons I show you in roses, you just start watching them and start learning them. There's one that I call the push-pull, that you can push-pull in here and get a beautiful look to it, just like that, and get that nice movement. You could use your finger like I like to use and just push it once or twice there like that. All different kinds of ways to do it. That's what makes them fun. Let's draw another slightly lighter one. I'm going to pull across this time to set the petal. I'm going to pinch wipe my brush, pick up a little darker color, just come right in here like this and pull in towards that bowl. Lift off before you get to the bowl. Lift off, lift off, lift off, and then push into that just to incorporate. Now you have another little rose. So you can see, if you look at this rose, you know, right now all by itself, it looks very complicated to paint. But what we're doing is we're just adding in and filling in petals, okay? Now I'm going to change the shape of this one. Just a little bit more pointed out there, like that. I like that. And maybe add, to get a nice flow, I'm going to add a little more light right to this side, right here. So I'll put a couple more strokes of light, and then just lift a little pressure, let it fade away over here. So my rose gets lighter over to one side. Now, with the room that I have left there, I'm going to put in, and if I see it's really, really light, I'm going to push real hard and remove some of that light right back to the shadow. See how the shadow comes back? Because underneath all of this wet light is the darker shadow of that bowl shadow of the rose. So I'm going to push it like that, and that gives me more room here to put in. Now when I do an angled stroke like that, an angled petal like this, I use just mostly the brush on its chisel. And I'm just going to draw one right in here, skirting right along the bowl. And I'll put in that angled petal right there. And again, I always keep an eye on my bowl. I don't want to go up higher than my bowl. I want to skirt it right along the edge of that bowl, maybe round this just a bit more, and drop it underneath that bowl, just like that, see? And that's, guys, this is the thing that makes your roses pretty, is the bowl. You always flow everything you're doing to that bowl. And sometimes you'll see me at the end of a rose just take this and push that roundness back into my bowl, because it's that roundness that makes it all really pretty. I'm going to take a little darker light color here and maybe make just a little bit of a bowl petal to this way here. See? So I know the rose looks very complicated. And if you look at it, if you're looking at the final rose here like this, and you're trying to copy something like that, that you can get lost really easy. So what you do as you're following along with this is just put me on pause. I pause very well. Put it on pause where that is and practice that. And you may, you know, do 2 or 3 roses practicing those shapes, okay? And there's nothing wrong with getting it out shaped. Now, this is my other recommendation to you that are following along and, you know, learning along with this. Never overpaint anything that you think is wrong. Save those boards. They're only $1 or so, right? Save those boards, because you want to put them up there, and as you get better and better, you want to be able to look back to where you were and see where those problems are. And if you're having problems, we have a group on MeWe.com that's called the Heritage Acrylic Artists, and we have hundreds of members there, and they're all posting their roses, and everyone is helping each other. It's a great group, and you should consider joining that. But save those boards, guys. Even if you think it's a mistake, nothing's ever a mistake. Something might be off, but you won't be able to see what's off if you paint it out. You've got to save it. Put it in the corner of your paint studio and save it there so we can compare where it's coming off and seeing what maybe you have a habit that's doing it, or something you're not seeing, and then we can correct that. Okay, all right. So now, in line with this, I might want to put just a touch more light. I'm just going to use a little more open medium here. A touch more light pulling down here like this onto this front one here. I'm going to put just a little bit more light into that. Right here like that. Just because that fits that coloring right there on that flower just a bit better. I'll pull some of that shadow up. Push that around just a bit. I like that. It's nice. It's a soft one. I like that. So then as you come in, so that gives you a good, here, this gives you a good basic rose here with how you're petaling it. And, usually I do two or three, and, then an angled one. That's usually what I do. So I'll go 1, 2, maybe 3, and then go 1, 2, and then angle. When you're starting beginning rows like that. I always say, how do you petal? Well, I usually will do, if I make the rows a little smaller, I'll go 2 up, 2 down, and then 1 angled. So it just helps you as you're practicing. And then as you start to get better with roses, you can do more things. I'm going to put just a bit of light out here on that edge there, because it gives you a nice light direction here. Does that make sense? And I can come back and touch light anywhere I want, as long as I just use that little corner. See, I use just a little corner like that, and I push that light right up onto that edge, and it makes a pretty little light edge. And so now I have a rose that has a really nice light feeling to it. Now, to finish this off, if you were going to do a little painting with it and stuff, I usually will take a bit of the, pine green and burnt sienna. Sometimes I'll take some of my reds and stuff into my pine greens, because that just makes all pretty colors. And you lighten this up, and you see you get nice soft greens, and you can use those to fill in and add in, other leaves. Sometimes I'll add some other greens and stuff in there, but you can use these colors to add in. And you'll want to, on your leaves, you make like little ovals for your leaves, and sometimes I like to just back them out. I don't like the leaves to be too dominant into the painting, so I try to keep their colors a little softer by not having them as light as the rose. The rose should be the lightest. Let's put a little yellow into this. The rose should be the lightest of your objects onto your painting, the most contrast, and it's the focus of your painting. So you can put on some pretty little oval leaves here. Sometimes I'll take a little burnt sienna, sometimes a little touch of the cooler, and that's the other thing you'll learn. These are your cooler colors, and so when you make shadows, you add just a touch of these colors here, and that makes a darker, cooler shadow there. And this is what we call the negative painting, and there's another one in this playlist. I just showed some negative painting. How important negative painting is, where you paint the background and shape the rose petal by the background. And there's just so many things, guys, and it's a lot of fun. But you don't try to learn it all the first time. There's a lot to them. And it's just, and a lot of people ask, when I teach and I make all these videos, I have over 1,500 teaching videos. I've written 82 books, I think, now on some of these subjects and stuff and techniques, and it's just a whole heck of a lot of fun. There's that many out there. There's just so many. But let's put just a simple, and vary the tone, so I'll get a little softer, a little more burnt sienna in some of these colors out there, and you can see it just makes a real pretty. And let me just come down here, take some of this green, some of this light. Let's just make a softer little peach color here. Right down through here, softer, a little grayer. You can see if I just quickly go like this, I can give this all as the impression of another rose down here. And I will just bring it up a little bit, just so you can see it. Now, this is not something that you should, if you're a beginner, you don't have to worry about this too much. I call these the ghost roses. And I always like an impressionist will always put in some ghost roses. We're very casual with what we do. We kind of just put in the kind of the shape of the rose. And one thing that you're going to learn right now, and I want to enforce this again, and I enforce it again, go watch that rose correction playlist. It's a great playlist. It'll give you some of these things. But one of the things is people lose that bowl shadow, that center and the center shadow. You lose that, you lose a rose. So I'm going to put in a soft one. I'm going to take some of the violets, a little bit of these colors here, and put in a soft. It is the shadows that make the rose. So I got kind of a rose shape here. But the second I start to add any of these shadows curving, and leave some of that movement, see, that's what makes the rose. That's what gives it its rose shape here. Let's put a little bit of this into a bowl right in here. And it's the bowl and everything that turns that into a rose. Do you see that? Now, if I want to give this a little bit better harmony, I'll bring these two a little closer together. Maybe we'll bring out just a bit here of that petal right into that bowl and just let it soften out there. See? And we'll just put in a little bit of color. Always imagine, see that stroke that's going right there? It's heading right to that bowl. That's what I'm doing. So because I do it kind of fast, and I'm sorry, but I pull it, and then I lift the pressure, let it fade away. So the next one, I would imagine it, and I'll touch it and lift up the pressure. And that puts in those petals going right towards that. And here, of course, they would round down towards that bowl. Everything's got to round towards to the bowl there. And I don't think I'll do too much more. Maybe just an idea like that. And I'll just leave that rose just sitting down there like that. It makes a pretty one. Sometimes I'll put a little rosebud off of there. But that's a kind of a nice little painting there. A little different for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But follow us on the playlist. Now, I'm running right now on the channel. I'm running what I call the two playlists. I'm running the beginning roses and I'm running the alla prima. And each week I try to paint a couple paintings into each one of those playlists, okay? So sometimes you'll see landscapes and other things come up. Sometimes you'll see different flowers and daisies and, you know, all kinds of stuff coming up as I'm teaching all different kinds of things. But this playlist that is here is for the beginning roses, and I'm going to be talking to you a lot of different techniques about beginning roses, and that you can use both acrylic and more like this, stain it a little bit wet on wet, but pure acrylic ones as well, okay, where I'm going to show you without those mediums. So follow along on the channel if you want to learn this. We're going to do the whole year of this painting this, and some of you more advanced painters, like I have a lot of my students, advanced painters, go back to relearn some of these ideas. Because what happens to you if you've painted for many years, like almost 40 years like me, is that I try to constantly change myself. Otherwise, I fall into a habit of painting one way. And it's hard for me to, it's hard to remember all these different techniques, and it's hard to bring them all out when you start developing habits. So watching the videos and trying some new things will keep it all fresh in your mind and give you some ideas and help you explore some of the ways in which you want to develop your own way of painting, okay? And we all need to do that because that's art, and that's what makes it really fun, you know? So anyway, join us on that. Come join our group. And if you have any kinds of questions, hit the comments down there. If you notice, if you look at all the videos I put on the last year, I answer all my comments, okay? I sit down every morning and I answer your comments and stuff because I love to teach and I love to talk to you guys. So, you know, hit the comments and stuff, and let's learn how to paint some roses. Don't get frustrated. We can do this. Everyone can do this. Don't get frustrated. We can do this. And we'll have a lot of fun doing it, okay? Alrighty. I'll see you in a couple days on the next one here on the Beginning Roses. I'll see you later.